wanted to say real quick, I had the privilege to work with a group of guys in Chicago, and they told me, first I was just patronizing, bringing them waters, juices, and different things like that to a construction site. And I wind up, they said, Kim, why don't you put your name in the hat? So I put my name in the hat. All these guys around me, I'm the only female, and I got me a $29 an hour construction job. Back in the day, we had people that supported us, and they wanted us to grow, and they wanted us to be something. But so then, you know, so where I'm going with this is, I used to write with the National Writing Alliance, and I don't know if you all heard anything about that, but I wrote a poem. And, this poem was actually for them, the men. So just like it is today, we still having problems with getting support, opening up businesses and different things like that. So the poem goes like this. Why me, says the black man? Why can't I feel like a man by doing what's right in my family's eyesight? You must like it when I struggle. You must like it when times are hard for me and I turn and do the most defective thing. You see, for me, my family is happy when they don't have to live in a shelter. You want to mess with me, you don't know me. You don't know where I've been or what I'm going through, but you want to judge me. You can't judge me, at least I'm trying to change. What about you? Can you look into my eyes and honestly say you understand my struggle? Can you say you're willing to help make a change? Because without your understanding, change will never come. You see, that's why the black man is so bitter. He has no job, no opportunity, no shelter, no clothes, no money to feed his family, but you whisper mean things about me, not even knowing me. But here I stand, asking for your helping hand, and you wonder why the black man is so bitter. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public speaker is Prophet Yusuf.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In the book of Proverbs, the 31st chapter, the 10th verse, it says, who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. What I want to speak about tonight, Women's History Months, remind us of women leaders overlooked. There's an African proverb that says, women hold up half the sky. Women constitute half the world's population, but still have not realized half of the world's potential, received half of the world's resource, or exercised half of the world's power. But women have always been an invisible backbone, unseen but strong, of transforming social movements and of anchoring institutions in society. Our families, congregations, schools, and communities. March is Women's History Month in our nation, and a chance to reflect on women's transformation impact on American history and turn it to inspiration and action for the future. The National Women's History Alliance, which champions women's history across the United States all year long, put it this way: history help us learn who we are. But when we don't know our own history, our power and dreams are immediately diminished. Multicultural American women are overlooked in most mainstream approaches to United States history. So the National Women History Project champions their accomplishment and leads the drive to write women back into history. The impact of women's history might seem abstract to some and less pressing than the immediate struggles of working women today. But to ignore the vital role that women's dreams and accomplishments play in our own lives would be a great mistake. We draw strength and inspiration from those who came before us and those remarkable women working among us today. Too often the women who helped build America's contribution went unnoticed. But the achievement, leadership, courage, strength, and love of women that I have is as vital as that of the men whose names we know so well. As Dr. Gerda Lerner has noted, women's history is women's right, an essential and indispensable heritage from which we can draw pride, comfort, courage, and long-range vision. I urge all homes, schools, libraries, community organizations, churches, Politicians focus their observance on women who struggle for equality. Your mothers, your wife, your sisters, your nieces, your friends. Susan B. Anthony, Sojourner Truth, Lucy Stone, Loretta Mar, Elizabeth Staton, Harriet Tubman, Alex Paul, Ida B. Wells. Understand the true history of our country will help us to comprehend the need for freedom, justice, equality under the law for all our people. I also want to tell my nephew this, and Miss Carla Ray, she's not here tonight. I've been wanting to tell her this for a long time, and I'm going to get it off my chest. I don't like you, I love you, and you can't do nothing about it. And happy birthday, my good friend, and I wish you many more. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, my good friends, happy birthday to you. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Our next public speaker is Alice Fry DeWall. Uphouse. Sorry.
First of all, thank you for voting to keep our Illinois state flag. 385,000 votes cast, 165,000 opted to keep our current state flag, and I want to thank you for that. And greetings, everyone. Your Honor, thank you for letting me come and visit this evening. Lucy Derwent Keeler, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Luther Derwent, was born December 19, 1894 in Rockford, Illinois. Lucy died in February of 1941 at the age of 45, I believe from complications from the flu of 1918. She attended Rockford Public Schools and graduated from Columbia Institute of Art, a finishing school in Tennessee. Majoring in art, she studied art in Munich, Germany, and in Minneapolis, Minnesota. In 1915, the headlines read, Illinois now has a banner. Honor for Rockford girl, Miss Lucy Derwent, one of the fairest, most gracious, and popular of Rockford's daughters, has brought distinct honor to herself and Rockford Chapter DAR. In 1918, along with two other young women, Lucy held a dance at the Mendelssohn Club, and she raised money that is now considered the Winnebago County Animal Shelter. During World War I, she and several other Rockford girls attended the National Service School in Washington, D.C. Another story, Rockford has the distinct honor of being the first Illinois city to supply Uncle Sam with First Lady officers. She was commissioned a first lieutenant. She represented the National Service School. Lucy volunteered for 2 years as a Red Cross ambulance driver at Camp Grant. An American flag, Lucy and her husband, Edwin Keeler, were married at Emmanuel Episcopal Church, and there were flags of France and England, and had oleander trees as part of the decoration. Some of the distinguished guests was Mr. and Mrs. Cyrus McCormick and Mr. and Mrs. Harold McCormick of Chicago. Lucy was an artist and designed our state flag, and entering the contest seemed like a perfect fit. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our public speakers for this evening. So we will move back to the Code and Regulation Committee meeting. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Torino.
Here.
Wilkins. Here. Barrios. Here. Bailey. Here. Bonnie. It's 4 present.
Okay, we have 4 present, which is a quorum. Under committee reports, item number 1 is a request to place for sale the city-owned property located at 727 South 3rd Street. The PIN number is 1126-178-020. May I have a motion to approve this item?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Is there any questions for staff on this one? Seeing that there's no questions, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. That item passes. Thank you. Item number 2, the final plat of Capra subdivision located at 5924, 5942, and 5972 Ockawamis Way. and 920 North Mulford Road. May I have a motion to approve this item?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Is there any questions or discussion for staff on this item? Seeing that there's no discussion, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. That item passes as well. Number 3 is 401 West State Street, Suite 200. The Zoning Board of Appeals recommends denial for a special use permit for a needle exchange in a C4 urban mixed-use zoning district at 401 West State Street, Suite 200. Live for Lally is the applicant. May I have a motion to sustain the denial?
So moved. Second.
Okay. I'm going to refer to staff, please. Just they have some new information to give us with regards to some of the questions that we've posed at council for the last month. The administrator, Mr. Magnoni.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I can answer the questions. I believe there was 2 questions asked to follow up on. One was clarification related to the services provided by the Winnebago County Health Department. We had been in communication with the Winnebago County Health Department over the last month or more. They do operate what's called the Winnie program through the health department at its main address, as well as through the 17th Judicial Courts, Remedies Renewing Lives. In calendar year 2024, they serve 365 individuals through their syringe services programs, as reported from them. As it relates to the specific hours of operation within the courthouse, they operate there on Tuesday and Friday mornings, as well as Wednesday afternoons. Additionally, we are asked for the opinions of the property owner related to the special use permit request, and this is a unique situation because under our zoning ordinance, prior to a zoning application, it requires the property owner's approval, understandings the impacts of the request and how it might impact our overall property from the time of the initial application, and now the property has been sold. So there is new owners of the property. We have been in conversations with the new owners. They have not approved the application. Understanding that this is rather new to them, and out of caution, they would like the opportunity to speak to their tenants on the issue prior to advancing forward. So at this point, effectively, they would oppose the proposed special use permit.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion from council? Okay, if there's no questions or discussion, we'll take the vote. A yes vote is to sustain the denial. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Serena.
Aye.
Wilkins.
Aye.
Barrios.
Aye.
Bailey. It's 4 ayes.
Thank you. Item number 4 is the honorary street name change, Tay Street. Request for an honorary street name change on Tay Street from Preston Street to Elm Street, renaming said portion to Jessie B. Flint Way in honor of Miss Jessie B. Flint Parham. May I have a motion to approve this item?
Second.
I'd like to make a motion to lay over this item, just to get a little bit more information about Miss Parham, if we could do that.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Could we please take a vote? All those in favor of the layover say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. That item is laid over. Thank you. Item number 5 is a request to execute an Illinois EPA Highway Authority Agreement and Supplemental Highway Authority Agreement Addendum for the property located at 3005 North Rockton Avenue. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any questions for staff on this one? I don't have any questions either. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. So that item passes. Thank you. Resolutions. Moving right along. Number 1, Peacoats and Denim, end of winter bonfire. This event is scheduled for March 30th from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. This event will be held underneath the Jefferson Street Bridge located at Short Jefferson Street between Madison Street and Water Street. May I have a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Second. Okay, thank you. Any questions for staff on this one? I have no questions either. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. That item passes. Number 2, Cars and Coffee Rockford. This event is scheduled for the following dates: April 5th, May 3rd, June 14th, July 5th, August 2nd, September 6th, October 4th. This event will be 9 a.m. to noon. The event location will be on 7th Street between 3rd Avenue and 6th Avenue and 4th Avenue between 6th and 7th Street. May I have a motion to approve this item? Any questions on this one? No questions. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The item passes. Number 3, Sip and Stroll at Edgebrook. This event is scheduled for May 10th from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. This event will be held at Edgebrook Shopping Center, which is located at 1605 North Alpine Road. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? No questions. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. That item moves forward. Number 4, the RFD 9/11 Fun Run. This event is scheduled for June 7th from 8:30 a.m. to 11 a.m., and this event will be held at 391 North Trainer Road. May I have a motion to approve this item?
So moved. Second.
Any questions for staff on this one? No questions. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. That item also passes. And lastly, the Pride Alley Party. This event is scheduled for June 7th from noon to 9. This event will be held at 115 North 2nd Street, 120 North 3rd Street, and Market Street between 2nd and 3rd Street. May I have a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Any questions for staff? No questions. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The item passes. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned.
Welcome to the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting held tonight, March 10th, 2025. Sir Clerk, please take roll.
Alderman Toomberg. Here. Prunty. Here. Frost.
Here. All right. We have a quorum. We'll move right into information only. First, we have a change order for the East State Street widening to William Charles. The original amount was approximately $2.9 million. I think it's a... And there was a change order for $113,122. There were additional improvements to the eastbound right turn lane and removal of unsuitable soil. The funding sources, the EDP grant funds, the FRSA reimbursement, and private reimbursement. And then next, moving on, we have a quarterly investment report for the end of the year, December 31, 2024. Ms. Haggerty.
Thank you, sir. So this is year ending 20. We finished the year in our core account with a 3.72% total return, in our short-term account with a 5.09%, and in our motor fuel tax account, which is required to be kept separate under state law, 5.13%. We had just a little update. We closed out 2024 losing some gains made in the third quarter due to a significant swing in the market value of investments. 2025 has had a bit of a tough start. A number of concerns that we will watch as the year progresses. The Fed currently predicts a 50 basis point rate cut over the year, which is less than previously predicted due to fiscal policy changes at the federal level. Slow progress to reduce inflation from the high in 2022 has stalled. And obviously tariffs are a major concern moving into 2025. All of these will certainly affect the city's ability to earn on our excess cash. The investments are currently all in compliance with the investment policy for diversification, maximum maturities, and sustainable investing. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Alderman Toomberg.
Thank you, Chairman. I think maybe Chairman Powell got a little ahead of himself when he said in this work it's pretty clear we've avoided a recession. I think Q1 may show us we may be getting there. I had a question, Carrie, on the Director, on the bonds that are in the portfolio. I don't know if this is something that I should address to PFM. We have a number of short-term holdings, and most of them are AAA, AA, single A. Some of them are listed as callable. Now, since they're near maturity, does that mean that the bond is in the callable stage, or is it just saying that bond has the ability, since issuance, of being called?
That I don't have an answer to, but I will get an answer for that.
Some of the bonds have callables listed after them.
Yes.
And just as a wonk of this kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Are they currently callable or just generally callable bonds? Right. Yep. I will get a response on that for you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Alderman Meeks.
Thank you for allowing me to speak in your committee. I just have a question. Are we allowed to ask questions in the information-only section for change orders?
You can ask a question. We're just not voting on it.
Yeah, but you can ask questions.
Sure.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you so much.
Sure. Any other questions on quarterly investment? Alderman Rose.
Yeah, just real quick, the term recession was used earlier. Is there, I guess my question is, in talks with our investment individuals who are looking at our bonds and things like that, what is their reasoning for that term being used? And is there, discussion on why maybe we're talking recession?
If I had a clear answer to that, I probably wouldn't be sitting in this chair right now, Alderman. There's a number of factors at play, certainly with the recession, and federal policy is, I think, the biggest concern right now.
Which would include things like tariffs? Okay, I was just wondering.
Alderman Thunberg, is it?
I won't go into as I would hope Alderman, First Ward Alderman wouldn't go into medical detail too much on things. So I'd be happy to have that conversation off the floor. Yes, when it comes to recessionary issues such as tariffs and the money supply being a major issue as well. But yes, I'd be happy to have that conversation off the floor. Thank you.
But I thought the definition, quoting just for them to use it as probably premature, I thought it has to be, what, is it 2 quarters?
Two consecutive quarters of negative GDP, so generally you don't know that you're in a recession until
after a year.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, thank you. Moving on to committee reports. Item A is an approval of vouchers in the amount of $8,447,491.01. Is there a motion to approve vouchers?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments on vouchers? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by aye. Aye. Opposed? Matter passes. Item B is approval of an amendment to the agreement with Associated Bank to extend the line of credit for an additional year. Is there a motion to approve? Any questions or comments on the line of credit? Alderman Meeks.
I'm just curious about this one. Is Associated Bank the only bank that we work with for lines of credit?
Go ahead.
We included line of credit services in our comprehensive treasury management RFP proposals. We received several back that the city chose. We had a line of credit in place when that RFP was issued. we're just continuing to extend that moving forward since there was no change in banking provider.
So there's no additional RFPs that need to go out?
No, not specifically for this because it was included in that comprehensive RFP, but we did solicit and evaluate a number of banks. I will say with Associated, specifically on the line of credit, generally a bank will charge you just to have a line of credit open, even if you're not using it. And with Associated, they are the only bank that does not charge us a fee for non-use. So there's no cost exposure to the city to have it available to us.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And how long does this line of credit continue to go on before that is reopened for other banks?
So the RFP that was awarded was an initial 3-year term with, I believe, 2 annual extensions. It's a time-consuming transition for us in finance, so we likely, unless we have significant service issues with Associated, would not recommend moving off of that contract until it's expired. But we will absolutely solicit proposals when that contract is done.
So just clarify for me, what year is this contract done?
That would be, the RFP process was last year, was in 2024, so it would be 2029, I believe, is the last year.
Thank you.
It would be going back. We do issue those RFPs probably a good 9 months in advance because it is a lengthy process for us to review and evaluate those.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
And the good news is this, we have not used the line of credit.
We have not used the line of credit. Yes, in over 10 years, the utilization currently was all associated with RAVE and their COVID-related cash flow issues when they were not in operation. That is being paid off monthly, and they continue to make payments on that, and they're responsible for the interest on that outstanding balance.
Alderman Toomberg.
Thank you, Chairman. Director Haggerty, I believe it was going to go down from 12 to 7 million on the line of credit.
Yes.
I assume Associated Bank doesn't charge any more to have a $12 million line of credit than a $7 million.
Right, because there is no fee for non-use.
Right.
Because it has been so long since we have had any reason to access it, we believed it was wise to reduce that amount from 12 to 7. We will continue to evaluate it on an annual basis as well and make recommendations moving forward. But again, because we don't pay for it, it's certainly a nice security blanket for us.
Yeah, I just wondered, I guess, and I don't mind it going from 12 to 7. We haven't used it other than for rave purposes, Rockford venues and entertainment purposes. But I mean, I just thought maybe if we're not paying for it, just in case some, crazy thing happened, that having a line of credit, if we're not paying for anything, just to have that larger line would be just a comfort Thoughts on that?
We held it, it was, the line of credit was originally 21 million. When we began using it for actual cash needs. So we've reduced it over time. I think we're in a very solid cash position today. I think maintaining a line of credit is appropriate, but I think we don't necessarily want to put a hold on cash at the bank's level, right? Associated's a good partner. We're looking at this annually. I think today 7 million is the right number. If our position changes, we can look at adjusting that back up if we need to in the future.
Good. Thank you.
Certainly.
Alderman Turkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was a caveat when this came up a couple years ago with Associated Bank, and that was their portfolio contained a number of zombie properties which they didn't execute foreclosures on. They were one of the banks that was holding some of these vacant and non-used properties here. Do we have, is there a way before we have the final vote next week, where we can get an idea of what they've done to resolve that? We were reassured that they were going to address that. Thank you.
Following the last, actually, I believe it was 2 extensions ago that Alderman Durkee raised the issue. I believe that Alderman Thunberg raised the issue. And we addressed it with Associated at the time. Obviously, our local treasury management group is not the same as their mortgage group at Associated. They reached out immediately to their mortgage group. I believe at the time there may have been 1 or 2 properties that had not yet been addressed. And again, this was, I believe, 2 years ago, that they had promptly addressed. I'm not aware of any outstanding Associated Bank properties currently, but I would be happy to reach out to the bank, to the local bank president, and have him provide us some information on the number of foreclosures that are in process for Associated in town.
All right. Thank you. Seeing no further questions, all those in favor indicate by aye. Aye. Opposed? Matter passes. Item C is an IGA between the city and Rockford Housing Authority in an amount to be determined per weatherized scattered site units. It does not require a cost match. It's from this grant term began back on June 24th, 2024, with the potential for a 1-year extension. The agreement will provide weatherization services and measures on RHA scattered site properties, reducing energy costs. Is there a motion to approve? Any questions or comments for staff? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by aye. Aye. Opposed? Matter passes. Item D is a proposed sale of a city-owned property at 122 Irving Avenue to Maria Olga Gonzalez for their bid in the amount of $1,000. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by aye. Aye. Opposed? Matter passes. Item E is a proposed city-owned property, which is a vacant lot located at 2614 10th Street, to Maria Olga Gonzalez for her bid in the amount of $1,000. Is there a motion to approve? questions for staff? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by aye. Aye. Opposed? Matter passes. We'll move on to resolutions. Item A is a supplemental resolution approving the appropriation of MFT funds for improvement under the Highway Code for East State Street widening by an additional amount of $500,000, bringing the total appropriation to $3.5 million. Is there a motion to approve? Any questions for staff? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by aye. Aye. Opposed? Matter passes. Item B is award of bid for citywide sidewalk repairs package 2 to TCI Concrete in the amount of $189,738.75. The contract duration is through June 13, 2025. The funding source is the 1% infrastructure sales tax. Is there a motion to approve? Any questions or comments for staff? All the meetings?
I want to be clear. Did you say item E? Did I miss that?
No, we're on item B under resolutions.
Yeah, okay. I just thought that one was skipped in the committee reports, but maybe I'm wrong. Sorry about that.
No, we did that one. All right, back to item B. No questions for staff. All those in favor indicate by aye. Aye. Opposed? Matter passes. Item C is award of funding agreement for the West 8th Street Sidewalk Gap Project using TAP grant funds awarded through Region 1 Planning Council. Is there a motion to approve? Any questions or comments for staff? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by aye. Aye. Opposed? Matter passes. Item D is award of engineering agreement for 9th Street two-way conversion phase 1 to Transit Systems of Schaumburg. The original amount was $2,036,497. There is an additional $206,994, which would bring the amended amount to $2,243,491. The additional supplemental work will consist of additional intersection design studies, ADA design, traffic analysis, additional public engagement requirements for the grant, and beginning of right-of-way acquisition to meet the timeliness of the project. The funding source is the Rebuild Illinois grant funds. Is there a motion to approve? Any questions or comments for staff? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by aye. Aye. Opposed? Matter passes. Item E is the award of non-competitive contract for City Yards lighting retrofit to 5-Star Solutions at no cost to the city. The contract duration is through December 31, 2025, and the funding source is the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program. Is there a motion to approve? Any questions or comments for staff? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by aye. Aye. Opposed? Matter passes. Item F is award of professional services contract for the 2025 Brownfields Assistance Grant to Fair Graham in the amount of $160,000. It's a one-year contract. The funding source is the Community and Economic Development Operating Budget. Is there a motion to approve? Any questions or comments for staff? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by aye. Aye. Opposed? Matter passes. Item G is an application approval and award acceptance of Brownfield Revolving Loan Fund grant supplemental funding from the U.S. EPA in an amount up to $1 million. This grant does not require a cost match. The 60 months from the date of entering into a formal cooperative agreement with the U.S. EPA. Grant funds will be used to recapitalize the city's existing revolving loan fund program and can be loaned directly to private developers or public entities, nonprofits, and other units of local government to perform environmental cleanup work at brownfield properties. Is there a motion to approve? Any questions or comments for staff? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by aye. Aye. Opposed? Matter passes. Item H is an award of a sole source contract for police communication radios and accessories to Motorola in the amount of $938,908.28. This is a one-time purchase. The funding sources are the fiscal year 2022 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant and the fiscal 2025 year Police Department operating budget. Is there a motion to approve? Any questions or comments for staff? Alderman Prunty.
Can someone just tell me what a sole source contract is?
Go ahead.
Sure. So the sole source contract is they are the only either local authorized distributor or they're the only vendor who can provide those to us. So with this one, Motorola is the only one. They're the authorized distributor.
So this is kind of like the difference between this and no bid is?
So the difference is just that they are the only vendor who can do it versus in other situations we've maybe gone out and just worked with somebody and they said they can do this for us and we've chosen not to bid the product.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
I'd like to call to order the Planning and Development Committee meeting for Monday, March 10th, 2025. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Durkee. Here. Wilkins.
Here.
Rose.
Present.
Meeks.
Here.
4 present.
Thank you. We have one item under resolutions. Item A is adoption of the Housing Strategy Framework. The Housing Strategy Framework will serve as a guiding document for City of Rockford housing policies, programs, and initiatives. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. I will allow Ms. Lies to go ahead and elaborate more on the housing strategy.
Thank you. So before you tonight is the Housing Strategy Framework, which is really a compilation of a lot of different planning efforts. So I first want to start out with thanking all of you for the different input we've gotten along the way, whether it was with the steering committee for the comprehensive plan,
sessions you spent with staff or consultants, looking through the housing needs analysis. Some of you attended focus groups or public sessions when it came to our consolidated plan. There are a lot of different ways we've been talking about housing. But this specific document and this specific effort started back in April of 2024 when we did a strategic planning session as the City Council. So when we were starting that process, we were looking at how housing is framed in Rockford and what our plan is for housing. And at the time, we were looking specifically at doing housing plans for contexts like the 6th and 9th Street conversion or the rail yards, and realized we really wanted to first set a strategy framework for the whole city, looking at all housing types and all housing needs, and thinking about what we need to be doing for the whole city, and then identify within that ways that certain plans or different neighborhood contexts needed to be addressed. So while it's, the city staff can work through a 300-page comprehensive plan or consolidated plan and all that sort of thing, we really needed to make something, a document where we brought initiatives, we brought implementation recommendations, all the different things that were buried in those larger documents that were really good pieces of the work, and brought them forward for just the housing discussion so you could see a goal of what we wanted to go after, what we wanted to do, see 5 strategies like that, help us move towards that goal, and then have specific commitments under those strategies so you can see how we begin to do the work in the community. So this framework is holistic. It includes new construction and preservation. It focuses on better internal systems. It looks at the needs of current and future residents. It commits to public-private partnership growth. And it emphasizes the need to engage the residents in the process and in this communication all throughout it. We set a goal of 6,000 to 9,000 units created and preserved over the next 10 years. That's on the upper end of our housing needs analysis, but we believe in the growth of Rockford and want to shoot for creating both more vacancy and more housing choice for who's currently here, but also having that choice for who's moving into the area. Strategy 1 focuses on making Rockford attractive for development. So the city's done a great job of positioning our current developments and reacting to interest in the city. This strategy reiterates the programs you've already voted for, like the tax rebate incentives, those sorts of things. But it also thinks forward about attracting more development by working with our local and regional developers to understand what it's like to develop here, and then to think more about the larger scale and how we bring that into Rockford. Strategy 2 emphasizes that while we want to bring housing into all City of Rockford, the same solutions are not needed in each area. We need to think about each context we're going into. We need to think about what each neighborhood needs for its current residents and anyone that's moving in. So an example of that could be maybe it's a single-family neighborhood now, but we need to maybe consider a zoning overlay in that neighborhood to allow some more duplexes or townhomes to come in the infill in that area. That would be something, though, that we'd work with residents in couple different ways to understand understand what they'd like to see in the neighborhood, or employers around that area, how many rooftops, what sort of housing we need to create. But we think about that, the context in the neighborhoods we're doing this in. Strategy 3, we emphasize approaches we want to take to continue to preserve our current housing inventory. So that's, again, championing the work of the land bank, continuing to do housing preservation with current housing, historic housing, and it's also examining the effect of vacant properties and vacant industrial properties on our neighborhoods. We want to motivate those property owners to activate those buildings. And if they need to be addressed as blight, then we need to move in and address them that way too. Strategy 4 says the city needs cross-sector partnerships to continue this work, to amplify this work, to leverage this work into larger things, right? And we need to enhance that bench strength around us in various ways. So it's calling out partners like the Housing Authority, the Land Bank again, our CDFI, that apartment association, people that we know, those groups we know we need to be working with to see this be a whole city vision. So there's specific ways that we look to do that in strategy 4. And then 5 is continuing this advocacy and communication, that we need to keep this housing strategy framework in front of people. We need to keep communicating about it. We need to know what's working and is not. And we need to report to you on progress and how we're doing specifically with housing in that creating and preservation goal, that creation. So that's my overview.
Any questions or comments? Alderman Rose.
Thank you for letting me speak. I had a few questions. The first one is, we had kind of talked a little bit about this off camera and off topic, or not off topic, but in regards to the NRN report, can you talk a little bit about how that played a role in developing this as a part of this work?
Sure. So the NRN report was, just to recap, was work that was done looking at data 2017, 2018, looking at the city. 2019, we then received a report where the whole city was analyzed. They looked at the state of property in each neighborhood. So how it was doing for home ownership rates, how many code violations, what was the median value like, how many foreclosures, how many vacancies. It compared, I think, about 8 different factors, and then categorized those neighborhoods as either emerging or challenged, middle, or strong. And then it went into more detail than that. I won't keep going, but there were other things. And then it gave recommendations of strategies under that. So that data then was used, and we're so used to the tool now, but we didn't have the land bank. The trustee was in a different hand. There was a lot of things that were happening, right? So there's very purposeful strategies that were adopted to start addressing those kinds of factors, to look at the vacancies, to look at why we're having so many code violations in certain areas, what we could do to increase the homeownership rate, how we bring property improvement into the neighborhoods. And then most recently, there was a new analysis, same thing, same group came back, looked at all the same data, same factors. And whereas in the first study, a good bit of there was swaths of emerging, I'm thinking colors, they were blue, but the emerging neighborhoods and middle neighborhoods were probably the dominant two types of neighborhoods in the city, and strong was kind of in one corridor inside of the city. When we reanalyzed according to the same things in 2024, most of the neighborhood had moved into the strong definition. We just had we have a few pockets that moved from emerging to middle, which is still growth and still good. And then we have a much smaller sliver that is emerging. So what that demonstrates is when you purposefully bring in policies like what we did on vacancies, like what we've done on critical home repair and those sorts of things, and you look at building improvement through those kinds of initiatives all at the same time, it does create the opportunity for investment in those neighborhoods. Does that answer your question?
Yes, a little bit. I guess two things. So in reading over this generalized document that we're going to be voting on tonight, which is the housing strategy framework, you kind of talked about how these longer reports are sometimes very just hard to read and interpret, and they, for the general public, they're probably not the best documents to share our goals and stuff. But I guess in regards to that kind of almost sister document that would connect to this, because I think if you just saw this document, the housing strategy framework, without seeing the NRN report, it would kind of only give you a small picture of that. So would the NRN report be that kind of sister document, or are we looking at the newest NRN report, or are there other reports that would be kind of in line with that too? Is it a combination, or is it just a few different ones?
It's a few different ones, right? And Todd can answer too. I should look back, but the NRN to me, the NRN was specifically looking at snapshot at two different times, right? And looking at condition and recommending policy, which is kind of like our planning documents, but this also takes into account those planning documents. So there are sentences from this that are copied from our comprehensive plan, the housing section. It's one of the chapters in there, one of the implementation strategies that you all helped develop, and said, let's make sure we focus on that. So we made sure it was called out in here. So there's definitely things that loop back to that comprehensive plan. And then when we did the consolidated plan with the HUD money, we did the same thing, where we made sure it was in line with the comprehensive plan strategies that are recommended, with what we were seeing through NRN policy, through what we were seeing in the housing needs analysis. And now the consolidated just carves out, like, for this specific pot of money, how will it contribute to this for the affordable audience, right? So it's kind of all of it. That's kind of the purpose of the framework, I would say, right? To make sure those are really purposeful, really great documents that we need to have in place as a community. But this gives us something as a community to be bringing in front of you, the policymakers, so that it's more accessible to everybody, and we're reacting to
the first one. I just don't know if we had access.
Sure, I can send that out. There was an article done by Enterprise Community Partners that had a link to it.
Okay.
So, because it's a digital report,
Okay.
So, but I will make sure I send that out.
Yeah, if we could have that for next week. And then my only other thing is, one thing that I was just a little concerned on was, you had, item one, which was attractive for developers, item two, which is talking about solutions, item three, preserving, item four, cross-sector partnerships, and item five, advocacy in communities. I didn't see really anything in those goals, and maybe I missed it, or I was kind of going through and combing through it around neighborhood aesthetics, and thinking about ways that component is key to changing our housing stock, because like when people ask me about certain neighborhoods or want to move into a neighborhood, some of the things they mention are like things like, hey, where am I going to go shopping? Or, do I see public art in my neighborhood? Is there access to a hospital or a clinic nearby? Like, just some of those basic types of services and aesthetics. Another example is, do I have sidewalks that function in my, area? Just basic things like that. And I know that they're probably each maybe listed in some separate areas, but I'd like for us to consider having a section that really addresses neighborhood aesthetics, because I think it's such a huge issue when people are looking to move here, or looking, even like setting that example for developers. You'll notice in certain areas around town they don't have sidewalks, and it's because the developer decided that they didn't want to add those sidewalks and basically pass the buck onto the city now, who has to now put in those sidewalks. And I just think that if we had a section on aesthetics, or we're very intentional around the aesthetics idea, that might be beneficial for the document.
So I appreciate that. Like, I think in the strategy too, on specific neighborhood context, is something we could build into there. Like, when we started the first one, the 6th and 9th Street conversion, most of the neighbors we met with there wanted better connectivity. Like, they want to be able to reach the river and not die on a road, right? Because the traffic's a bit. But they want a grocery store. They want, like, there's a lot of things that come up immediately when you start talking about what do you want to see. So that's I think what you're talking about, and wanting to make sure we're
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say thank you for answering those questions, and I'll yield my time.
Thank you. Alderwoman Meeks.
Thank you so much. So I feel like what I was listening to was a lot of, we created this strategy, and then we're going to use this strategy to create this next strategy, and then we're going to take that strategy and create a new strategy, and we're going to now condense that strategy into something that makes sense for people, so that we can then promote this strategy and get more grant funding to implement more housing. really want to see more of is how we're going to do that. You know what I mean? I feel like what you're saying is all what I feel like we talked about when I was part of the steering committee for the 2040 comprehensive plan, myself and Alderman Durkee. So I feel like we did kind of lay out what we wanted, but I can't say that I've seen yet what the actual strategy is, how we're going to get to that end goal of 6,000 to 9,000 houses. And if that housing is affordable for this community, because we are doing a lot with regards to market rate housing and luxury housing, and we're even investing in that and giving money so that we can implement that into our community, which I won't object to the fact that we need it, because it's important for the people that are coming into the community, people that currently live in this community that can afford that. But we cannot not acknowledge the fact that there are so many that cannot. And how are we getting to that end goal? I feel like this is still a big wish list that we want to be able to implement. I guess my question is, what is new on here that will help us with action items? Can you help me kind of understand that?
Yeah. So no, I can appreciate that. We hear that all the time, right? There's how many plans and binders with plans and all those sorts of things that we don't need. And this is why it's specifically not called a plan, why it's a framework, right? So one thing I can tell you is new. We put a goal on here with a number, right? So if you went through a lot of plans, they don't say we've decided we want to go for 6,000 to 9,000 units. We've given a metric right off the top. So that's a different way to be talking about the context, right? And then there's 5 strategies, but there's action steps under each one. And we worked with the public sector working group. We worked with the community-based organization working group. We got input from the Realtors Association, the Apartment Association, private developers, all sorts of different audiences. And one of the things we asked them, we brought this back and we would say, do you see commitment from the city to next steps when you read this? Do you see just overarching guidelines, or do you see commitment from us? And honestly, they gave a lot of input to change wording on air to make it more that the city was saying we were going to do something. So, like, take strategy 1, number 1, is saying, like, we're going to purposely bring in the local and regional developers already here and let them talk with our building, construction, zoning staff to say, what are the barriers? What's been going on? How are our processes? Could you do more if what? You know, like, we're going to engage in those conversations. They want to give us input directly, so we're committed to that now. It's in the goal. We have to report out on it, right? Like, number 2, it goes like that, right? That's how this is supposed to read, is each action step underneath the strategy and is not still just a plan. Now, we are still the city. We're regulatory. We bring in developers. We look to advocate for resources. We want to amplify the residents' voice. We want to, there's a lot of things that we do as the city and as the government that isn't necessarily we're directly developing the housing, right? So we put things in about the cross-sector partnership to say we need the housing authority to step up and bring its nonprofit out and do more with it to think about the affordable housing. We need land bank to take advantage of what the state's talking about with possible resources for local communities. We need the CDFI to be able to do the same thing. We're not necessarily going to start a construction crew ourselves to develop things, right? So, if you read it, the commitments are more in the leadership, the regulatory, the how we're making sure things progress, and then how we're incentivizing it, how we're talking about it. And again, there's two places at least where we try and build in a context for residents to make sure their voice is heard too, right? That's our job. So to your point, how do we say X percent's going to be affordable, or and what definition that meets, and all those sorts of things? We're going to have to be in these conversations, right? The conversation about local CDCs that represent a neighborhood and think about what's best for that neighborhood would be great to enter. So then what percent of that needs to be, and what does affordable mean for that neighborhood? Attainable is really the word, right? Neighborhood groups and associations that aren't as active anymore now, how do we reactivate those groups to be really addressing it so that we're creating the right percentage of those kinds of houses? So I would say to you, there are more specifics in this than we've had in the past, in this simple of a format, I would say, in the past. Not that we weren't specific. I don't want to speak too generally, right? But some of, I think, what you want is going to have to develop and be reported to you, and be in conversation with you as we're doing that, as we're in the neighborhood context, as we're thinking about what's appropriate, what's attainable, what's affordable, what do we need to really bring in here.
And then with regards to the TIFs and how we're strategically using TIFs to support housing development and reinvestment, is that for current TIFs or new TIFs? Because people like me, I don't have TIFs, so that means I get nothing, right? But no, that can't mean that.
Well, we want to look at how we're using TIFs. A lot of what is happening with TIF agreements right now is mixed-use development or housing, right? We have the philosophy we've gone to, is it called micro TIFs? We're not doing we've talked about this, we're not doing the broad range geographies anymore. We're thinking about what development's happening and giving that, giving opportunities. But so we're not opposed to starting more TIFs, and we do want to, but we just want to make sure they're purposeful and the city doesn't end up with a debt burden because it was too broad and not thought through, right? There are some successful uses of TIFs for single-family. Lincolnwood Estates, I would say, is a good example of that. There are things the city has done in the past, and there are good results of it that we're still seeing those good parts of that now. So we'd like to relook at that and see what's viable. But again, with the philosophy being that we do it well and we don't end up with payments we have to make later.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that so much. And also, if we could consider creating kind of something coming from the city, maybe. I think we talked about this, that mirrors programs and benefits that are offered from the state. Like an example would be the River's Edge tax credit, where people purposefully create ideas and projects based off of their ability to tap into that type of credit. So it's like, what can be done to create similar type opportunities for those that don't benefit from being on the river's edge, but need to benefit from development?
Right. Yeah, well, to give you City Council another congratulations. I mean, you just voted through the property tax abatement and the connection fee, and that is something like, I can tell you when I'm in community development conversations with peers and other communities, and they talk about that as an idea, but boy, it'd be so hard to do, and we're about to do second year. So that shows some willingness. It shows on your part some thinking forward and thinking about how you're going to do that. So we can keep building on how we're thinking about it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Alderwoman Serena.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Madam Chair. I have a couple questions. In strategy number 3 and strategy number 4, I did notice that the land bank was listed twice, so it looks like they're going to be sort of a heavy partner with us in this overall framework. As a former employee of R1, sort of watched how they manage the land bank and trustee program. And I know that you don't work there, Ms. Lies. Maybe you have some insight. If you don't, we can find out. But I think one of the things that I was always questioning or didn't necessarily like was the fact that this land bank has over, 500 to 1,000 homes, but they only put them up for auction like twice a year. And it just kind of seemed like we know that there's all these properties sitting, and yet we only have access to do something with them a couple times a year. And that's like if you're lucky enough to know how to work the system. So I would like to see, like a sort of a better system to even engage people that want to get into this program, and even the trustee programs. Like, I'm still on their mailing list because I just want to stay abreast of what's happening. But even the trustee homes, you only get an email about a new trustee home like 5-6 times a year. So it's like, I guess, do you know why it's so limited with when they do the auctions on the properties?
I don't officially, and I can pass to Todd in a minute, but I would just want to say, like, for the strategy, I'll start with that first. One thing we noticed in the state's report on middle income housing and how they want to look at developing housing, middle and all of the income groups, they really emphasized the idea of, and their recommendations centered on trying to take funding that's normally at the state financing agency and try and figure out how to use some mechanisms that have more of a local perspective in getting some of that funding out. So that document that was produced and was in the way the state's going to be looking how it's doing resources, they really emphasized land banks and CDFIs. So we put that in our strategy part, as Alderman Meeks mentioned, like we want to make sure this strategy is smart, thinking about the other resources we want to bring into the community. And if we need to amplify the land bank to get a bigger part of a certain pot of money, we want to make sure we're ready and our tools say that we're supportive of the land bank. Because if they're the ones who can get the money and only the ones that can get the money, we need them to get it, right? But to your other points about how the land bank operates and how they decide things, I don't know if city administrator could tell you a little more.
Thank you. Certainly I can provide a little bit more information on the land bank. You know, the city of Rockford is one of the 4 founding members of the land bank that was created with the city of Rockford, the county of Winnebago, the county of Boone, and the city of Belvedere, and has since expanded since the original formation of the land bank with other community partners. But generally, the land bank is not sitting on properties. They're coming in, and once they're secured and they have the authorization to sell, they're selling the property or going to bid as quickly as they can. However, you may be thinking about the Winnebago County Trustee Program, which is separate from the land bank, and we're not directly associated, with the complete operations of the Winnebago County Trustee. R1 and the land bank are the agent for the Winnebago County Trustee, and much of the sale process is tied to the legislative process on when they can sell properties and when they can go out to bid. I can tell you that it has drastically improved from when it was operated by the previous agent from the Winnebago County Trustee. It is light years ahead, and how they overall operate, to bringing the trustee sales, to making properties more available, and to the maintenance of properties which did not exist prior to the previous agent, and the city of Rockford was maintaining all those properties versus being a part of the overall program. But I'd be happy to get sort of a more of a detailed update from R1 on the status of the properties and when they're cycling out and when they're being held. I do think there's a lot of confusion when we talk to residents throughout the community. Many times they think the city of Rockford owns those homes, and we don't, or that the land bank owns those homes, and they don't. They're actually under the control of the Winnebago County Trustee. But R1 and the land bank do facilitate the sales as the agent for the Winnebago County Trustee. So I hope that helped.
Yes, thank you. My other question is, how do I want to ask this? So typically when city council gets a development agreement, we're not at the table with regards to what the document looks like, what's in the document with regards to these development agreements. So, like, for example, the new senior affordable housing unit that was just built, it came to council after it's done. Coleman Yards came when it was done. But I guess what I would like to see is there plans to make a different approach with regards to some of these we're putting up a lot of, let's just say, market rate housing or luxury housing, whereas there could be some affordable units put into those buildings, and we could be putting into the development agreements that it's required that if the city is going to give you $2 million in TIF money, then there needs to be some affordable units, some Section 8 units included in this so that it fits into the overall strategy, so that we're also, offering different types of housing options. So I guess my question is that going to be a part of our strategy moving forward? Is that we're sort of trying to build sort of these things into development agreements? And as a council, yes, we can make it a requirement after the fact, but it would be nice if it was just built in there from the beginning when a developer did approach us about building something.
Right. No, I appreciate that comment. I think that one of the things this framework's meant to do is to help make sure in any conversations where we feel more reactive that we're able to find the avenues towards moving towards proactive and what we want to see. So that's a good comment to take into account. One of the things that, so there's tools and things you're talking specifically about the city council approving, but there's a affordable housing credit that developers of multifamily buildings could be getting in the state of Illinois. The state approved a program that it's percentages of affordable units, and I don't know all the mechanics of it, but like if you have 25%, you get X percent, you get your tax assessment frozen at a certain rate, and you get that lower tax rate for 10 years, or there's different ways of doing it. And that program has been very successful in other counties. Our county, because the county controls the assessor's office, opted out of the program, so developers in our community can't take advantage of that, which makes it really hard for a developer to make the cash flow work for a 10 or 20-year production, right? So that's why you're seeing that we're either doing market rate or luxury, or we're doing LIHTC historic credit, as much tax credit possible on a deal, right? Like it either has to be heavily subsidized or it has to have a rent that will support the operations for longer term. To get some of those middle mixed income, we have to figure out solutions like the state did to say there's units and there's buildings in Chicago that are seeing, they'll see $750,000 to $1 million a year back because of some of these. Those are larger buildings, right? But they can make come through. They want to do a 9% LIHTC, all affordable, all those sorts of things. We've asked them to run other models. Run a model for us at 4% with mixed income and try this. We've asked them to run and see what their gaps are to see if we can get any closer and where we are. And we're getting closer to that, but we're still having too much of a gap in that middle, the conversation you want. So without getting the full, without that full equity recovery, you need to be in those middle conversations without the state tool to offer them some money back. For the city to really adopt a policy like that, we'd have to have like a housing trust fund or something to help out, or all we're going to see is people walk away. You can't cash flow right now without incentives.
Yeah, that makes sense. As long as that's something we're considering, just my biggest thing. I have one more question. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other Alderman Bailey?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to speak. I want to applaud the city for this framework. There are a lot of good things that I see coming out of these 5 different strategies, with these five different action steps underneath. One of the things I like to see coming out of it, because I'm hopeful for the future of this community, you all have put a lot of work into, this framework guideline, because there are some elements there that can really help